Well, good morning. I never spoken in a movie theater before, and I feel kind of embarrassed my slides are not in 3D. Yeah, maybe next year. So you know me. I hope you know my website. I've been trying to write a bunch of helpful stuff, including books. Part-time, I work at a Dutch, let me get that straight, Apple authorized enterprise reseller. The accreditation is new, so I'm still, doesn't really go over my lips yet. Pro Warehouse in the Netherlands. We manage the Macs for many of our customers, and we also resell them. It's been kind of fun experience. I've been doing that for not quite half a year now. Today, however, we're going to have some fun. I want to talk about Terminal. And as Mac admins, we love Terminal and we hate Terminal. It's this wonderful, great tool that allows us to do things we couldn't just otherwise do. But yeah, every time we have to learn something new, we hate it. And the reasons for that are many. First of all, Terminal, the shell that runs inside the terminal, is old. Not just in computer terms old, but this is technology that has been around for 50 years. It's literally 50 years. There's a lot of layers and tradition and things that have accumulated over the years. All of these commands, you have to memorize them. There's some rules for how the terminal commands work. There's some general guidelines. And then there's all those commands that just don't care. So you really have to memorize everything. And you can look it up, but memorizing helps. Then if you make an error in the best case, things just don't work. That's the best case. In the worst case, yeah, you might destroy things in really bad ways. But we use it because it allows us to do things we can't do otherwise. It is extremely powerful when it works, which should be most of the time. And because of all these things together, if you're an outsider looking at Terminal, you're like, I don't understand how this works. It's completely incomprehensible. All of these things reminded me of something.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Stop. You're going to take someone's eye out. Besides, you're saying it wrong. It's Leviosa, not Leviosa.
You do it then if you're so clever.
Go on.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Oh, well done! See here, everyone. Miss Granger's done it. Splendid.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Well done, dear.
I think we're going to need another feather over here, Professor.
So, Terminal on the one hand, and magic on the other. Magic, not just in the Harry Potter universe, but pretty much everywhere, is also ancient. You have to memorize incantations that you just can't comprehend. Errors can lead to disaster. It is very powerful if you can manage to control it, and is utterly inscrutable for muggles. So Terminal is magic, and we can use that. And with that, I welcome you to the macOS School of Terminal, Witchcraft, and Wizardry. I was going for the longest session title here, but then Joel beat me to it before I was even on. So, yes. You don't have to take notes. You can go to my website, scriptingos10.com/witchcraft, where I have put up the slides. They should be there already. I put up notes and links to articles on my weblog, because this is basically a summary of articles that I've written over the last 2 years or so. And I've kind of picked the cherries out of there. And also some books and other things. I will put this URL up at the end of the slides as well. So yeah, I just mentioned it. Last summer, I put a series of articles up on my weblog, which I call the Terminal Primer, or Primer, I never know. And while researching this, there were so many things, and I've been doing this for a long time. I mean, I've been in Unix longer than macOS was Unix, but definitely since macOS 10 was out, I've been living in the terminal. But when I did the research for this primer last year, there were so many things that I found that I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. This is useful. And that's something just to keep in mind. None of us were born knowing these things. Many of the things I will show today, you probably know. I do hope there will be many things in there that you don't know yet. And we have to keep also explaining this to the new admins that come to macOS. So I've been told to always start with a bang. I'll do better than that today. I will start with 2 bangs. Bang, bang. And if this confuses you, that's because special characters have different names in terminal programming. If you're non-native English speaker, this is extremely confusing. And I'm quite sure that even if you are, this might be confusing. The exclamation mark is often called a bang, because it's an exclamation. The asterisk is obviously sometimes called star, but also splat. Also obviously. The number sign has a whole list of names, Octothorpe definitely being my favorite, but it's most commonly known as the hash. The vertical bar in Unix is of course the pipe. And the tilde is also known as squiggle or twiddle and a whole group of other names. So this is a bang bang. And of course the bang bang stands for substitute the last command, as in do something. Oh no, I can't do that. Sudo do something. Oh yeah, I will. So a different example, a system setup has to be run as root, even if you're just asking for information, which I think is annoying. Also, system setup has the most annoying message to notify you that it needs to be run at root. How exciting. Really? Just do it. You can hit the up key, Control A to go to the beginning of the line, type sudo space, and then return to run it as root. Or you can do the easier thing and type sudo bang bang. And the nice thing about sudo bang bang, it's actually the same number of keystrokes. I counted it. Somebody said, well, it's the same number of keystrokes. It doesn't matter. It really is. But I still think this is easier. When you run with sudo, this is called history substitution. The exclamation mark commands in bash are called history substitution. And it will repeat what it's substituting, just so that later on you can check what actually went wrong and you ran it as sudo. So you can look at that. Then it will ask you for the password or not if you just ran sudo, and it will get you the output. And of course, we know that. Most of us, at least, probably should know that. Bang bang is substitute the last command. I think it's pretty much exclusively used with sudo. I haven't really found a frequent use case. Sometimes SSH, the bang bang, can be useful, but it seemed a bit contrived. The bang bang has siblings. The bang dollar is substitute last argument. And this is where things really get interesting. So you write a command, and in Unix the convention is that the last argument of a command is the target, what you're working on, what you're working against. So I can use the bang dollar to just create a new directory, and then cd bang dollar is change directory into that newly created directory, because that's what you want anyway, unless you're working on it first. And I can chain the bang dollar, because the bang dollar consistently is the target. I can chown something and then change the privileges, and I could do this chain on and on for as long as it's sensible, and at the end probably you change directory in there. So the bang dollar is a very useful command. If that makes you uncomfortable because you're running something and you don't really know what it is, if you lose track of what the bang dollar is, there's another keystroke, and this is the escape key and then period, not simultaneously. First escape, then period. It also works on the Touch Bar MacBook Pros, and that will insert the last argument of the previous command. And the advantage is you see what you're doing before you hit return, and you can modify it before you hit return. So both are useful. Escape, then period, insert the last argument, and then you hit return or whatever you want to do. These are two siblings. They have more. I find these less and less useful. First argument of previous command without arguments. They get less and less useful, and there's actually even more of them. You can, if you know the syntax, you can pick and choose the third and the fifth argument from the previous. Why? By the time I've counted it, you can just as well type it. But while I was researching this, this one popped out at me. I didn't know this one before. So carré, or it's also called hat, a string, hat, another string, hat, will repeat the previous command, substituting the second string, xyz, no, substituting the first string for the second. And I feel that might be useful. I haven't gotten into the habit of that yet, but it's something I feel I want to remember. You can use the up key to go back commands if you just want to repeat or modify and repeat them. That gets tedious after like 2 or 3 keystrokes. Control R, reverse iSearch, really weird name. You just hit Control R, the prompt will change, and you start typing something that's in the command you're looking for. So if I hit SYS, it will search backwards through my command history, and it will find this. Even though the command didn't start with SYS, it will find this. You can then hit return to execute it, or you can hit the left arrow and start modifying it before you execute it. Then, yeah, just the return key. So left arrow is navigating within the prompt. Obviously, to move left, we use Control B, and to move right, we can use Control F, which makes perfect sense if you look at it on the keyboard. I couldn't actually find where this is from. There's probably some deep Unix terminal, mechanical terminal reason for this. The nice thing is we're on the Mac. We can use the left and right arrow key. So we don't have to memorize B and F. You can use Option B and Option F to move by word to the beginning of the current word or the beginning of the next word. To use this, you have to enable Use Option as a meta key in the terminal preferences, which I believe is not enabled by default. Then again, we're on the Mac. This is nice. Option left key, Option right key does the same thing. The same as in any macOS standard text editor, by the way. To go to the beginning of the line and the end of the line, we have Control A and Control E, which makes sense if you're German, because A is Anfang and E is Ende. If you're Anglophone, I'm sorry, I couldn't think of a mnemonic, but yeah. And the surprising thing, there's no key, no macOS key. There's no arrow key predefined in terminal to do this. And you can go into the keyboard preferences in the terminal command and define your own. I use Option Shift, or you can use Command left and right arrow, and then you have to go in and assign the Control A and Control E strikes to Option or Option Shift, whichever you prefer. And down here is also where you find the Use Option as a meta key, which you should have activated because it re-enables many standard Unix keystrokes. There's another very Mac way of doing this, and that is option clicking anywhere in the prompt. So if you have a command and you want to get to a specific point, hold down the Option key and just click, and it will jump the cursor to that point. You also notice that when you hold the Option key, the mouse pointer turns into a crosshair. That is because the Option modifier key is also used for rectangular text selection rather than line-by-line text selection, which can also be very useful when you're selecting columnar output. But option clicking anywhere in the prompt, very useful, and then you don't have to memorize all the other keystrokes. Sometimes you will have output and you want to go through the history in the terminal. You want to jump to see previous commands. And you can use Command Up and Command Down to do that. Command Up will jump to the previous mark, and Command Down will jump to the following mark. And the marks are actually these small gray square brackets that terminal puts at the beginning and end of each command line. And terminal will automatically set marks wherever you hit the return key. It will set the mark upon enter. And that is very useful. You can manually set marks, but I rarely do that. I like the automatic ones. And then again, command up jumps to the previous command. Command down jumps to the following one. And if you have a touch bar MacBook Pro, you can see these weird up and down symbols. They are actually the same as command up and command down. Once I realized what they were, that's actually kind of useful. There is a sibling command to this, Shift Command A, which will select the output up to the previous mark. Or in other words, it will select all the output from the previous command, which also very useful, something you probably want for some commands. On macOS, Terminal and Finder actually work really well together. I get from Finder to Terminal usually with drag and drop. You probably know that if you grab a file and drag it into a terminal window, it will type the full path to that file. I can actually grab multiple files, and it will put in all the paths space separated. So if a command can take multiple files, I can just throw that in there. If I drag a folder onto the terminal icon, I skipped that. There we go. Drag a folder onto the terminal icon will open a new terminal session to that folder. Now, usually, you want to do that because you're working in a folder in Finder, so you have the folder open. The proxy icon in the window title bar is also draggable. And I can drag that onto terminal. So I don't have to find where my folder actually is. I just can drag the icon from the terminal. This is actually true in many, many windows, that the icon in the window title bar is a draggable file proxy. And then I have a working shell to that. I can also command drag into an existing terminal window, and it will type cd to that folder and switch the working directory of that terminal to that folder. If you're typing the paths manually rather than dragging and dropping, you definitely always should use tab completion. So in case you don't know how it works, you type a fraction of the file name, and you hit tab. And in this case, it will beep at me. Why will it beep at me? Because it's ambiguous. There's many possible completions. If I hit the tab a second time, the shell will actually list the possible completions. And I can finish, type more characters to make it specific. And then it will complete the path. You should always use tab completion. It's not just less typing, which is good. It is safer. You will make less errors. And when you make an error in your path, the tab completion will warn you. It will keep going, ark, ark, ark. This path does not exist. You probably should do something about this. It will also automatically escape strange characters. And I have, for testing purposes, this folder with strange file names, folder names. I really tried to throw all the weird characters. Probably should put some Telugu characters in there just to test. So if you do tab completion and you just type part of the name and you tab complete, it will automatically escape all the weird characters. So the parentheses and the spaces and the ampersand automatically get escaped, and you don't have to worry about it. One thing that's really cool, that there are many ways of escaping strange characters in the shell. You can use backslash escaping, double quote escaping, single quote escaping. And if I start with double quote escaping, the shell will realize that and say, oh yeah, I can do that too. I can finish this with double quote escaping. You want double quote escaping? You get double quote escaping. I have a file in here. It's called important exclamation mark. And the exclamation mark is one of those weird bash characters that I can't escape in double quotes. It is the weird one that I can't escape in double quotes. And so I started this tab completion with the double quote, but then when I hit the tab key, it says, well, I can't do that. And it switches to backslash escaping. So the tab completion in this case is really smart and will save you at some point. One of the annoying things about shells in general and tab completion in particular is they are case sensitive. macOS file systems, on the other hand, are case insensitive. Both HFS Plus and APFS are by default case insensitive but case preserving, I think is the exact definition. This conflict sometimes arises and is annoying. So if I type cd lowercase doc and want the tab completion, it will keep beeping because I can't find that. That's annoying. You have to add a file to your home folder called .inputrc and add the line set completion ignore case on. For me, that's the only line in the inputrc. There's more things you can control there. This file controls the settings for any input in the shell. I only have this line in there. If the file already exists, then just add this line. And then at least tab completion will be case insensitive, and it will also do the smart thing. So when I start with a lowercase d and hit tab, it will substitute the actual file name and make it look nice and work, and I find that much less annoying. The rest of the shell still remains case sensitive, but at least tab completion isn't. One power tool in the shell are wildcards, usually the splat and the question mark. You should use them. They are very powerful. They save you a lot of typing. However, when you use them, you should always have a kind of apprehension about it. ls is harmless. But if there's rm at the beginning of this line, you're like, yeah, what am I actually deleting? You can hit the escape key twice. On touch bar Macs, be sure to make a short pause in between. They're not that fast. But hit the escape key twice in succession, and the shell will show you how this particular globbing pattern will be substituted. So if you're unsure about your globbing command, hit the escape key twice, and it will show you what you're actually doing. Double escape. Oh, look, autocorrect. Globbing. We all expect glowing results, I'm sure. Another annoying thing where the Mac world and the terminal world collide is when you try to select a path in terminal. You can double click it, but it will only select the word up to the slash, because the slash separates words. It doesn't select the entire path. Or if you have URLs in the output, you have the same problem. When you hold down the Shift and Command key, when you double click, it will go up to white space. It will select an entire path output. And then this has a sibling command, Command-Shift-V, so you can hold the same modifiers, double-click, and then hit the V key, and it will just, instead of copy-paste, it will just type what you just selected into the command prompt. So in this case, I ran an openr command and just showed some output. So Command-Shift double-click will select entire paths or URLs, because it selects up to white space. Command-Shift-V will take that output. You don't have to go through the clipboard. Saves you one keystroke. And just types the selection in the current prompt. Talking about copy and paste, we have command line tools to use the clipboard. And they're called pbcopy and pbpaste. The pb stands for pasteboard, which is what the clipboard was called on next step, back in the days. So this is how old these tools are. They are still in macOS and still extremely useful. pbcopy will take the standard input and put it in the clipboard. As simple as that. So usually you will run some command and pipe it into pbcopy. Probably text. Should technically work with binary information, but that's always a bit dangerous. So I can cat a file and put it into the clipboard. This is, for me, one of the fastest ways of taking a text file and getting it into the clipboard. If you want to have your IP address, you can get it in your clipboard. This is the most one I use. You generate a UUID. You probably want to paste the UUID in some document, probably a configuration profile. So you might as well just pipe it into the clipboard straight away. many UUIDs were wasted preparing this. PB copy. Its sibling is PB paste. It goes the other way around. PB paste will take the clipboard and put it to standard out. So I can just take it and create a file with the contents of the clipboard. If there's text in it, of course, that'll work. Or I can use the pipe and pipe it into another command. So if I want to count how many lines there are on the clipboard, this is easy. I want to sort the clipboard, and I get all the nice Unix tools. I can grep, I can use awk against the clipboard, PB paste. You can combine the two. Oh, no, wait. You can also use command substitution, obviously. So if you want to use the contents of the clipboard, say in a defaults write, you can use it that way. The dollar parenthesis is the same as the backtick, but a bit safer because they're easier to nest. You can combine the two. So if you want to take the clipboard, sort it, and put it back into the clipboard, I just chain them into a pipe. I use this because I actually like to see the UUID that I created. It will take the UID, put it in the clipboard, show me the clipboard, but of course it also stays. This is one that I needed for a project quite frequently. TextUtil is actually a really useful utility built into macOS that will convert different text formats into one another. This command will take a snippet in HTML, doesn't have to be a complete HTML document, and convert it into RTF and put the RTF back into the pasteboard. And yeah, if you need quick changing, and read the TextUtil man page for details. If you copy a file in Finder, you probably recently switched from Windows to the Mac, because that's how you do things on Windows. You copy a file and you paste it elsewhere. And it works on the Mac too, but people who have been on the Mac for a long time don't use that. Terminal is smart enough, same as with drag and drop. If I copy a file in Finder and paste it into Terminal, it says, well, you probably want the path to that file. So that's great. But other applications aren't that smart. And if you copy a file in Finder and paste it, they will do different things depending on the application. But if you want the path to a file in, say, a document for documentation, or if you're writing a book or something like that, you can hold the Option key, in this case with the context menu, or just Option Command C. And in the context menu, the copy command will actually change to copy as path name. And then it will actually copy the string for the path name, and if you can then paste that into other applications, especially when you're writing documentation or emails. Go to this folder. Go to folder. Finder has a great command called go to folder, Command-Shift-G. And it kind of works a bit like Terminal. So it will open this dialog. Oh, no, wait. My videos are a bit slow. It will open this dialog, and you can just start typing path names, relative path names and absolute path names. You can use tab completion. And if the tab completion is ambiguous, it will present you a list. This is actually fairly new. We didn't have that for the longest time. And then when you hit return, it will take the Finder window to that path. If you're not using that yet, this is a very useful, especially to get into hidden files, like the library folder. But talking about hidden files, there is something wonderful that happened in Sierra. If you are in Finder and you hit Shift-Command period or Shift-Command dot, it will show and hide hidden files. And you hit it again to hide them. So no more going to Terminal, writing the defaults command, kill all Finder. We don't need that anymore. Shift-Command period, show and hide hidden files and folders. If you want to go from Terminal to the Finder, you use the open command. The simplest and most common use is open dot. Open the current working directory in Finder. We'll open a Finder window with the current folder. Well, that's great. I can also give it a file name. That's the same as double-clicking the file in Finder. It will open the file with its default application or with its set application. Kind of useful. Sometimes you want to see where the file is and have it selected, Open-R will reveal the file. So it will show the enclosing folder of a file and select it. I used that earlier in one of my movies. Open-A will open application. You just have to give the application name. You can drop the .app. You can also give an application identifier, but I have yet to find a situation where there's actually better. So this will open Xcode. That's kind of useful. It gets more useful if you add a file name. This is the same as dragging a file onto the icon in the dock. Open-A Xcode, hello Python. Open this Python file. I don't care what application is set to open Python files. I want to open this with Xcode. Many text editors come with command line tools that do this. Many applications do not have small command line tools. We don't need them. We have open. For example, when I build packages, I want to inspect those packages to see what they're actually doing. My favorite tool for this is Pacifist. Suspicious package is also great. Open-A, Pacifist, something PKG, will just open it. This is so useful. I put an alias for it in my bash profile. And you will probably want to start doing these things too. Suspicious package, bit long to type, I don't know, SPKG, whatever alias you want to use. Terminal itself can do that. If I type Open-A terminal path to a folder, it will open a new terminal session to that folder. So you want a new terminal session somewhere else, and you have your hands on the keyboard anyway, Open-A terminal. You can open URLs. This is moderately useful with websites. It gets kind of more useful if we add the -a. My default browser is Chrome or Safari. I want to open something with Firefox. I can do it this way. It gets more useful with other kinds of URLs. VNC URLs are opened in screen sharing. So this will open a connection to Mac in screen sharing. And I can add a username to this. And if the password is in the keychain, I don't have to type anything. Well, anything more than this. It goes in there. This also got an alias in my bash profile. This also works with SSH. So instead of just running the SSH command, which opens the SSH in my current terminal session, this will open a new terminal window with an SSH session to this Mac. Depends on what you want. Read the man page for open. It's a surprisingly useful command with many, many options. And since we're talking about man pages, the most common way of opening man pages is type man. And it's the most boring one on macOS. There are many other ways. You can use the help menu, start typing a command. It will, if it finds a man page, it will list that. And when you hit return, you will get this wonderful yellow man page window. You can use two-finger scrolling in here. And my favorite thing is you can hit Command F in this window, and it will actually search and show you the options instead of the other output that is with less, and there's some arcane keyboard commands to use search. This is just like it should be on a Mac, Command F. And you can jump through the results fairly easily, the yellow man page window. If you don't like the yellow, if you want to change the font size or anything, there is a profile called man page. If you change the settings for the look and feel of that profile, that will be used for man pages. So if you don't like the yellow, I like it. I like how it opens in a separate window. It doesn't take over my current terminal session. If you have a touch bar MacBook, when you type a command in the terminal prompt, one of the buttons down here will actually open the yellow man page window for that command. That is actually really quite useful. In system preferences, keyboard shortcuts, services. There is a whole list of services that you can enable and disable. And the one that I want to talk about is not enabled by default. It's open man page in terminal. You can go in and enable it. By default, the keyboard shortcut is Shift-Command-M. And any application that supports text services, you can select a word And somewhere in the services section, way down at the bottom, you will get open man page in terminal, which will also then again open the yellow man page window. Quite useful for documentation or in Slack, for example. So the yellow man pages are actually quite useful, but when you type man something in the terminal, you still get the old one. It will take over your current terminal session. You have to know the weird keyboard shortcuts to navigate this. This is annoying. The great thing is the open command comes back to my rescue here. There is a URL for the yellow man pages. It's x-man-page. And because typing x-man-page is tedious and boring, again, this is something that goes into my bash profile. And I use xman as the command for this. But if you want to, you can just override the existing man command. And then every time you type man, this will open the yellow window instead of taking over your current session. Imagine that there's one final spell that I want to give to you. Imagine you're running a long-running terminal command. My example is rsync. I'm making a backup of my photos library. And I'm using rsync instead of Finder because Finder does weird things when you copy lots of files, which is what the photos library actually is. This command will take a while. I don't know how big your photos library is. Mine is 300 gigs. So you have your terminal window open. This command is running in it. Terminal window. The terminal window runs a bash instant, your long-running command. If you want to test this, use top. It runs indefinitely, doesn't do much, but this is, for the sake of the argument, we're using rsync. Now somebody comes along and says, what's this terminal window doing? I don't want that. I want to clean up my desktop. And all the processes inside go away. Good thing you were using rsync, because rsync will pick up where you interrupted it, but still, you have to do that. There is a command that will protect you from this. And you can use no-hub and foregrounding and backgrounding processes and all of that. Bash does that. But that is complicated and error-prone, and I never remember how to do that. There is one command that I do remember, and that is screen-D-R, screen-DR. It's the only thing you have to remember. This will actually open a second bash instance inside the screen process. And then you can start your rsync. So this seems kind of involved, redundant. One nice thing that I also want to point out, if you hit Command-I in terminal, it will open an info window, and you can get many information about your bash session. And one of them down here in the lower right corner is you actually see the list of all the processes, the hierarchy of all the processes running in a bash window. This can be useful sometimes. And in this case, it will visualize what's actually happening. Now when you close the terminal window, it will tear down the window and the initial bash session, but the screen process will persist. It will stay running. And in the screen process, your rsync command will just keep chugging along. You're not getting any output, or at least you're not seeing it, but it keeps going. When you open a new terminal window, we have to reconnect. And the command, again, is screen-D-R. The screen command, again, read the man page, hundreds of options. This is the one you have to memorize, the only one. Screen-DR will actually realize, oh, look, there's an instance of screen already running. I will reconnect to that. And then you will suddenly see your rsync process, and you will realize, oh, this has been running all the time. It keeps running. This is wonderful. Imagine you do this at home on your iMac. You want to run a backup of your personal photo library at home. You're at work, or you're on the road with an iPad or an iPhone with an SSH client. So on a remote computer, I open terminal, I open bash, I start SSH, which opens a new bash session on my home computer, if I can connect to my home computer. And then you again run screen-DR. It will find the existing screen session, connect to it, and show you the progress. You can make sure the rsync command is still running. Everything's OK. Screen, -dr. Read the man page. You should be knowing the tool that you're using, but this is the one command you have to memorize. And with that, you can keep your spells magically running in the background. So, in the end, remember, it's Leviosa, not Leviosa. Otherwise, it will blow up in your face. I hope there was something in there for you. It's always hard to spread the entire thing of knowledge. I put it in as intermediate, but I actually wanted to check, well, all levels of skill. You will find more notes, the slides, because I know I was talking and clicking fast in between. Here, once the video is up, I will also link the video.